Welcome to 908 ENT, the podcast. I'm your host, Sal Liberato. We're here to help you take another step towards success. Now let's get ready to learn the basics from the best. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for coming back to tune in. We have a special guest today, Karen Kniff. She's a real estate agent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Service, New Jersey Properties. She's one of the top producers in the area. She's received various awards in the industry, but this is all stuff anybody can look online. So Karen, thank you for coming on. And is there anything you'd like our listeners to know about you?
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm just happy to be here. This is my first podcast ever, so I'm a little nervous. You're going to have to walk me through it. But I got into real estate about 8 years ago and haven't looked back. Love what I do, and I think it shows.
That's awesome. Yeah, so to get started, we like to ask everybody, what are the three simplest things that lead to success?
I think being honest, you can never go wrong. Whenever you're honest with your clients and in life, you don't have to remember the lies. You don't have to make things up. And it ties into being true to yourself. And I think that would lead me to my second thing, which would be authenticity. You want to make sure that you're true to your values. And I would say consistency. You need to be consistent in your work ethic, in your process. And I really think that that's the formula.
No, those are great. I think consistency is definitely one that a lot of people overlook because they think that they're going to do something, then the next day it'll happen, but you got to stay with it. So I think consistency is definitely a great one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you've been in real estate, you said, for about 7-8 years. Can you share a moment or experience that inspired you to want to go into the industry?
Actually, yes. So when my husband and I were just starting to think that we wanted to own a home, we were driving around towns, which many buyers do, and we stumbled upon a house in Summit. And we knew we couldn't afford it, but we were just nosing. We saw an open house sign, so we're like, let's go check it out. And we met an agent who actually is now my manager. And she gave us a whole tour. And, I remember stepping foot being like, we can't afford this, but it looks really nice. And she walked us through the whole thing, told us all about it. And I just thought, wow, that was really great. And she educated us on, the house, the area. I grew up in the area, but still, it was just really, really nice experience. And ultimately, we went on to buy and sell 3 different properties with her after that, because she said, you never know, someday you might be able to afford this. And ironically, at the third transaction, we actually did purchase a home that now is roughly in that price point. At the time, we couldn't afford it, but now we can. And that kind of also, I guess, if you think about it, you should always be thinking about the long term and the end game. Like relationships start naturally, and you never know where they're going to go or who they know or their relatives. Real estate is very much of a relationship business, and both on the client side and on the relationship side, just with other agents and other brokerages. So, but that was really our first taste of it. And then it's funny because I had a different job in sales. But then when it came time to kind of changing gears, I was very much drawn to the experience of when we bought our home and just the process and seeing the properties and learning the different areas. And it just felt like a natural progression for my career in sales, and also just something I really enjoyed. I think you have to really love what you do.
Yeah, definitely. And then so you had the sales experience before, but real estate, I feel like the whole process is dealing with people and the relationships, because some people it's their first time, other people, they might have had a bad experience before, but now you're here trying to help them not have that again. So it's all really about the relationships.
The relationships, and, you have to be trusted. We talked earlier about trust, but real estate agents are really trusted advisors. You're helping them through one of the most expensive purchases in their life, and you want to make sure that they feel good about everything. They understand everything. Education is a big piece of it, and really just being there for them, supporting them through it.
Yeah. So the education part is definitely interesting. Is there anything that you do to stay updated or continue your education, whether that's the real estate industry or just business in general?
Absolutely. You have to be in the know as to what's going on, not just domestically, but internationally. You need to understand really the markets and interest rates. You have to not so much educate on it per se, but you have to be able to understand how it affects the real estate market so that you can properly
Mm-hmm.
educate your buyers on the best time to buy or sell. And then you also need to educate them just on all of the steps. I feel like as long as you keep educating them on what's next, it's not overwhelming and it's not scary. But if you just, keep dropping things in their lap or just assuming they should know,
Yeah.
basically, I have to say the transaction's probably doomed from the start.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, I mean, real estate, it's a very tough industry. So do you think that hard work beats talent or talent beats hard work, whether that's the real estate industry or business in general?
I definitely think that hard work is almost never wasted and talent can be wasted. So I definitely think hard work is what really makes the difference.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have said that come on. They think that, hard work beats talent to a certain extent, but I mean, you can teach yourself a lot of different things, whether that's the real estate industry, business in general, or just kind of anything.
Yeah, and I think you have to always be open to learning new things and listening. I think that really is the key to success as well. I think that if you don't keep up with what's going on in the industry or the
Hmm.
inventory or even the trends, frankly, you'll struggle in properly advising your clients.
Yeah. And then going back to the whole relationship type thing, you can give as much or as little info as you want, but how important or influential do you think it is being a member of the community and kind of getting connected to whatever community somebody's in, whether that is real estate or just business in general?
I think your network and your connections actually makes you the most valuable. Sometimes think real estate is kind of like being a lawyer, right? When you go to a new law firm, you bring your clients with you,
Hmm.
right? Because your client base is what makes you valuable, right? Your
Hmm.
network. So whether it's business connections or personal connections or, connections through your children or the dance school or, volunteering. I do think that being seen as a pillar in your community is also very important.
Hmm.
You never want to, but you also want to be true to who you are. So
Hmm.
if you are passionate about giving back or you're passionate about, being involved in your community, I think that people will see you as someone who they can feel good about working with. Um, but I think it has to be authentic too, right? If that's
Hmm.
not really who you
100%.
are, then you're going to be a phony and nobody's going to trust you. And it's just, you really need to be your authentic self.
Yeah, definitely. And that goes back to one of your points about that leads to success. So being authentic, there you go. It just ties right back in. So over the years, can you share maybe a valuable lesson that you've learned from, whether that would be in life, in business, in real estate, kind of anything that might help any of our listeners?
Took me a while to learn this, but you really need to listen. You need to listen to what people want, need, what's important to them, because
Hmm.
just because you think you know what's right for them doesn't mean that's what's really, truly right for them.
Hmm.
Um, Even in your relationships, whether it's be with your husband, your children,
Hmm.
you always have to listen. And it's funny. My husband always says you should listen with you. You have two ears for a reason and one mouth for a reason, right? You
Hmm.
need to listen twice as hard as you speak. Listen in that ratio. Um, the other thing is be open to learning from your mistakes. Don't be afraid
Hmm.
to ask for constructive criticism. I think the only way you truly improve is by understanding what you could have done better or maybe how you were perceived, but you didn't realize it. Be open to constructive criticism and don't be afraid to ask for it. I think a lot of people um, get very uncomfortable with doing that. And then the last thing I would say is outsource what you don't love doing because, you only have one life. And if you love what you do, it's not really work.
Hmm.
Um, but, if you hate cleaning your house, hire a cleaning lady and work a little more.
Hmm.
Life is short. So outsource what you really don't enjoy doing because then you'll be able to focus more time on the things you really do love.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to touch on the asking for feedback. So I'm reading a book, The 10X Rule, and it touches on that. So a lot of
Mhm.
people ask for feedback with current clients or current customers on the process. They never go and ask somebody that is not a customer, not a client, why they didn't buy, however, many years after and months later. So it's definitely interesting to look at feedback, because that's going to be constructive, because obviously they're not a customer or client. So that's definitely an interesting point.
Yeah, I do make a point of, even if they don't buy with me or sell with me, I will ask and say, can you share, maybe it's not so much about me. I might share what made you choose them even, right? So, what made them stand out in comparison, not so much that I want them to throw me under the bus or,
Yeah.
although I haven't really had anyone do that, but hopefully it will never happen. But, I have had some people say, well, their marketing was this, or that, just to really understand what I maybe need to put a little more emphasis on in my next presentation, especially, if I'm in a listing presentation, or maybe they didn't feel I educated them enough, or, luckily I haven't had that. But, I do make a point of, even if I refer them to other agents, maybe out somewhere else in the country, I might say, I do make a point of always interviewing the people that I refer them to. So I do all that homework for them. But then I also make sure that their experience was really good with that person. And I try and get feedback for that agent as well. Because I do think that we're only as good as our network and the people we work with. This business is very much a referral business, and growing your sphere and your network. And so you always want to understand how to continue to keep everyone in the know, and also feeling comfortable enough with you that they can be honest with you. That all goes right back to the trust from the very beginning. So it really is, you just have to be consistent with who you're presenting, what your expectations are, and making sure that their expectations are being heard and met.
Yeah, definitely. No, like I said, that part, there's a whole chapter just in that book right out of it. I'm not sure if you read it or not, but it's literally what you're talking about. So that's great.
Yeah, and don't take it personally. Just because they might criticize you, they're doing it to help you be better at what you do. So always, it's easy to be very defensive, but really try and bite your tongue and listen.
Yeah. No, that's literally what it said in that chapter. They're literally giving you the answers that you need to, keep progressing. And then talking about criticism, which could lead to, an obstacle or a setback, what do you think is the best way to overcome that?
I think that you want to learn from it, right? So if somebody's going to criticize you, take a step back, digest it, take into account the source, right? So if it's somebody you really respect, it's gonna hit home a little bit, right? And it's gonna make you really rethink. It's just a matter of really being very self-aware and understanding how to grow.
So in the real estate industry, or, business in general, what do you think is more important for, it could be, somebody that's been in the game 10 plus years, or somebody just starting out? Do they need passion or motivation?
A little bit of both. You're an independent contractor as a real estate agent, so you can make your business whatever you want it to be, right? So it can be small, it can be big, you can grow it into a huge team. So you do need the motivation, and you got to be a self-motivator.
Yeah, definitely.
But you also, I think if you're going to be selling, you really want to be successful, I think you have to have some passion. You have to be excited about what you're doing.
Yeah, or else it can get old quick.
Yeah, and I think whenever anything becomes boring, or you're not into it, or you're not loving what you're doing, it's going to come through. It's going to show. Whether you want it to or not, people are going to sense it.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, this is somebody's biggest transaction of their life, so they definitely want to know that you're in it for the right reasons and you actually care. You're not just like, all right, yeah, whatever, I got to go to work today.
Correct. I mean, you have to understand, I do mostly residential real estate. So that is definitely, I'm going to call it more of an emotional transaction. Whereas if you were doing commercial real estate, which is not something I specialize in, it's much more of a transactional, it's all about the numbers and about, the deal itself, So you have to also remember emotions are running really high in residential real estate transactions.
Yeah, I'm sure. So going into, a little bit of the real estate without getting into too many specifics, can you give maybe any insight or tips to our listeners that may help them in their real estate process, whether that is they're looking to buy something or they're looking to, sell their home? I know it's kind of, still crazy out there, but whatever you can give to help our
Sure.
listeners.
I think that it's really important to work with a professional. A lot of people think they can just sell their house on their own and it's really easy. And secretly, I wish it was for everyone's sake, but the truth of the matter is it's really not. And I think that when you do it yourself, you're more likely to make mistakes and leave a lot of money on the table. And it's very hard to wrap your head around that initially. But once you're in it, I think you will, or speak to anyone who's ever tried to sell a home on their own, you'll realize it would have been great to have that expert advice, have someone guiding me, making sure everything was going to go smoothly or as smoothly as it can go. Not everything is always wonderful. And just remember, especially for sellers, keep up with your house. Make sure, you notice something's broken, fix it. Because when it comes time to sell your home, you want to be able to show and demonstrate that your home's been well cared for. It is much more difficult and expensive, frankly, to get a house ready to sell if you haven't kept up with it. And it's your most expensive asset for many people. And to not care for your most expensive asset is sometimes very difficult. And buyers will notice. They do have inspections and they realize that, you haven't taken good care of it or it's been neglected, and then you're going to lose money on it. As for buyers, I think, making sure that you really do your homework, interview. You don't have to hire the first agent you meet, right? Meet different ones, interview them, find out how they work. Are they really a good fit for you? Also making sure, the other vendors that you're going to work with, whether it's, if you need a loan, it's, dealing with different mortgage lenders, shop around for your rate, make sure that you're getting the best, rate that you possibly can if you need a mortgage. Or perhaps, you need a bridge loan or whatever it might be. Make sure you're taking the time to understand all of your options so that you make the best financial decision for yourself. And even when it comes to attorneys in this area, we mostly use attorneys to help us with our transactions. And they're really there to protect you. But make sure the attorney you hire is someone that you can get on the phone, that you trust, and that really will do the job that you expect them to do.
Yeah, definitely. And then going back to the sellers, it's kind of like what we were talking about the other day, that not the fun and flashy things are the things you need to, invest in and put the money into, because when it comes time to sell, it's like, oh, who thought of that? Or it's the stuff you don't see that's not fun and flashy.
Correct. Yeah. So a lot of the bills that you incur with your home, unfortunately, are, the furnace, little mason work, the roof, the leak, the gutters, not very sexy things. But the truth of the matter is that's the infrastructure, and that's what really helps your property retain its value. You can always paint another wall a different color. You can always restain a floor, You getting mold out of a house is very expensive and not fun. Termite damage, you got to take care of it. You don't let things become a bigger problem than they need to be. One of the reasons why I also love this industry is that no transaction's the same.
Yeah.
Not one. No house is the same. You always have different challenges. And, look, some transactions do go smoother than others. But it's also knowing how to negotiate, understanding how to get to the closing table, and making sure, in every transaction, in any negotiation, both sides have to give a little. You want both sides to feel good, but not too good. Both sides feel like they gave a little. And usually those are the deals that go the best. If one side feels like they really took them, then the other side doesn't feel great. And then, the whole deal kind of left a bad taste in their mouth, and, things don't always go well. You want both sides to be in it in good faith, with both sides' goal to get to the closing table.
Yeah. And then throughout that process, I guess it goes back to like the three things you said. You got to have that authenticity so they can all see that. And then the trust, because if they think that you're not getting them, the best option, the best deal, it's like, well, this is not working out for me.
Correct. And pointing out, the good and the bad, right? On every property, as much as we know. I am not an inspector. I'm not a lender. But I do try to help put them in touch with the right people who can advise them properly and make sure that the people that, we suggest, whether they hire them or not, they can hire whoever they want, have the years of experience. And also are trustworthy and authentic and honest so that, they feel good too about the people they're dealing with. You want to deal with people who also hold themselves to the same standards.
Definitely.
But you can't always. So then you have to make it work.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. And then the authenticity, it definitely ties into, marketing and then what somebody sees and then when they meet you. So you definitely do a good job of, displaying that through all your marketing and, social media, print, kind of just being in the community, all that type of stuff. So
Thank you.
If that doesn't add up to when somebody meets you, it definitely is just like, all right, well, I'm not working with this person now.
Yeah, it feels like false advertising, right? It feels like right from the get-go, you're like, this doesn't match. This doesn't feel right. And people really do go with their gut more than I think you'd be surprised. But I think that, your instincts, and we all go with our instincts in life, right? We all, I think we hire people based on that, or sometimes it is price, sometimes it is, the cost of a vendor potentially, but, you get what you pay for in life, so maybe it's a few dollars more, but you feel that you can trust them and you feel that you're going to get what you expect. Maybe it is worth those few dollars more to not have to redo or start over, whatever it might be.
And then just touching on marketing just a little bit.
Sure.
We can do real estate specific because, that's what you know. So how important is marketing kind of in real estate with, let's just use a listing in general?
Sure.
Like just to get the word out there or just to, display what the house actually is.
So marketing is, number one, honestly. And when selling a house, your first impression obviously is online for, I believe it's 85% of the buyers out there. So, your photography, your floor plans, your, descriptions of the property, the accuracy, making sure that what you say the property is accurate. You want to market the property on the correct platforms and to the correct buyers. And sometimes it's not just Zillow or Trulia or, these realtor.com. Sometimes it's also, finding the groups that make sense or I'm going to give an example. If it's a historical home, for example, you don't want to just market it on Zillow and Trulia. You also want to find out, are there historical communities that, websites that love historical homes where you can buy and sell them? Well, maybe you want to put the house on that platform as well, because that's a captured audience that loves historical homes and you have a property for that. So, I think that one of the things that the internet has been great for, but also sometimes you forget, is searching for those places that make sense for the property and making sure you're really getting it in front of the right people. I also think that if the property has a great story, you want to get the story out there, right? Like, this artist used to paint in the back barn. And, I had a client and she had all these old articles that showed, the painter, the artist painting in the barn in the back and just had like this amazing story, So we did make a point of taking all of that and pulling it together so that, sending it out there into the universe, whether it's local platforms like Patch or Tap or any of those, but also maybe you send it to the New York Times or Wall Street Journal Mansion section and see if they pick it up. You never know. Sometimes it won't, but, I think that whether it's online readers or newspaper readers, everyone loves a great story. So if you can, whether it's even that high profile marketing, but maybe it's even just a story to have when people come to the open house and have a little something to learn about the property or its history. Just makes it that much more exciting. I do think print marketing.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about the print marketing. So that was a nice segue into it.
No problem. I think, online seems to be all the rage, right? But the reality is I don't know about you, but I still have family that loves to get the newspaper in the mail. They don't read news or books on their tablets or online. They still love to touch and feel. They go to the library, so I do think that, you have to remember too what generations you're marketing to, right? Not everybody is super tech savvy. I'm sure you, even doing this podcast, it ran into some people who maybe aren't going to do it on Zoom, but they'll only do it on the phone or, vice versa, right? You have different comfort levels with where you find your information, right? You gravitate to what you know too. So I do think that doing some print marketing and not only doing digital is important if you truly want to capture a larger network. I think you shouldn't limit yourself to just one way of marketing yourself.
Yeah. And then can you just touch on, because it came up in a few episodes as well, and I did learn it from you as well, the handwritten notes and the handwritten cards, stuff like that. It did come up in a few episodes. So can you just touch on that real quick? Because I know you're definitely big on that.
Sure. I am. I think there's nothing like just taking the 2 minutes to send a little handwritten note or a holiday card or New Year's, whatever it might be. And just, letting them know you're thinking about them, that they're top of mind, that you appreciate something they did, even if you saw it on social media, right? Like maybe you saw they just had a new baby. Well, take the time. It takes 2 minutes. Grab, have some. Truthfully, sometimes I just go to TJ Maxx and I buy all the they're not that expensive, but they're really nice note cards, and I just kind of make them work for what I need them to work for. And I just write a nice little note, just saying congratulations, she's beautiful, loved seeing the photos on Facebook, But it's that combination too. I think that really sticks with people, and also that. Yes, you want to be consistent, but you also want to be authentic, like we talked about before. And I think just doing things kind of the old way a little bit, I'll say, like just taking the 2 minutes to do something means more these days, right? You can write a quick comment on Facebook in 2 seconds. How many people read all the comments? And do they really, and are they really that meaningful? But handwriting something out and putting the stamp on. I also like to buy special stamps. I don't like just the plain flags. I always like going in and, I don't know, maybe it's a little cheesy, but there's just something about getting an envelope with a really nice stamp on it, I think, makes you kind of smile.
Well, it just adds to the impact.
Correct. Yeah. So those are little things. And I personally think that I've done a holiday card or New Year's card every year. And I usually actually, a lot of your clients do become your friends actually in this industry more than I think some, because you get to know so much about them, which is what makes you a good agent, right? You really find out who they are, what's important to them, how they live their life, what's their activities, what's their passion, not just about work and the commuting time. Those things are important, of course. Everybody asks those questions. But when you really get to know them, you really can understand how they might use a house or how they might move through a property, or why maybe a first floor bedroom is extra critical, or why the office really needs to be farther away from the playroom or the kitchen, or maybe it needs to be really close for a different reason, because of how they live their lives. So I do often, send them a personal, like whatever my holiday card is for my friends. And then That's maybe awesome. the New Year's one might be a little bit more about business, right? It might feature a home I sold, and it might share a little note about, just kind of something I'm proud of, so that then they, yes, they see the social media and this and that, but you're taking the time to really show them this was, kind of the thing I'm most proud of this year, that the most beautiful home I sold, or the percent over that, the amount of money I was able to get my client made me feel so good, or whatever it might be. It's just also telling a story. I find stories stick more than just, a picture of a house. Yeah. A story resonates and it kind of is more memorable.
Well, a story and then that mixed with the handwritten, your impact is, there's a big impact right there.
Correct.
Yeah. So as we, come to the end of the episode here, is there any final piece of advice that you would give our listeners to help them take another step towards success? It doesn't have to be real estate, just business in general, personal, kind of just anything.
One of the things I think is most important is making sure that you read the newspaper every day, even if it's just the front page and skim it. Or listen to Up First, which is the top 3 stories of the day on NPR. I think it's really important to know what's going on in the world, domestically, internationally, because you just never know who's going to walk into your life. And I'll give a good example. So I met this buyer, and the buyer told me that they were from Bangladesh, and the other agent was standing there and they didn't know where that was. And I remember I read an article about how Bangladesh spends 3/4 of its year flooded because it's at such a low elevation. And I said, I started to share this, and I could see him light up because I knew something about his country, and he, it resonated, and I said, I can't say I know too much more, but I remember that really stood out to me in learning about your country. And he said, oh, yes, and he started talking, and right away he opened up and just started sharing, right, about, his country and where he's from. And, just that him and his wife were the first to come to America and have such a different life. And they said, we never lived in a home like the buildings that are here, so we have a lot to learn. And, so when it came time to hire an inspector, the person really helped them go through the home and understand everything and how it all works, because they had only rented an apartment before that and gone to school and lived in dorms. So they really hadn't had much, they can't call their dad up and say, hey, can you come over and help me fix this? So but listening and understanding and just having that background a little bit to finding a way to connect with someone and just show them that, and you might not know everything. And I'm not pretending I knew everything about Bangladesh, which I don't, but just a little tidbit that, piqued my interest and immediately helped a conversation facilitate. So, and even in college, I remember, I used to skim the front page, and almost every day in my class, the teacher would say, who knows about what's going on XYZ? And I usually did, not because I necessarily read every book every night and was up to date on all the schoolwork, but I could always participate in the discussions, right? And that I always took away from college, actually. It was the one thing I realized that helped me stand apart in my classes and has now continued to help me stand out in life and my relationships and my work.
Wow, that's great. Thank you for that. Thank you very much for being on. I think this was definitely insightful, and, this was definitely great. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You got it. If anybody wants to connect, feel free to reach out. If you have any questions and want to connect with Karen, what's the best way if anybody wanted to, reach out or connect with you?
Sure. I'm on every platform. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Google Business, LinkedIn, but you're also welcome to just call me on my cell, 908-625-4891, or send me an email at karen.c@bhhsnj.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.